All right. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment, and I wanted to make sure that all of our board members were here. All of you know that our colleague Bobby McDonald was not reappointed to this board, and I just wanted to take a minute publicly to thank him for his service, his friendship, his good humor. You know, ever since I've been on the board, I think Bobby was my official welcomer, for sure. And this board will miss him personally, as well as his input professionally. And I would like to recommend, at the concurrence of our board here, that we asked the chancellor and staff to make some arrangements so we might recognize him at our next meeting if he's available and location and circumstances all go well. So if everybody's okay with that, I would make that request of the chancellor.
Happy to do it.
Okay. Vice Chancellor Michalowski, update on Senate Bill 1440, our student transfer bill.
Well, I thought I was copying this presentation to the desktop, but it seems to only look like it's the presentation. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulty. With me is Jane Patton, President of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges, and we are going to provide you just our periodic update on the implementation of this very important legislation, SB 1440, that was designed to provide our students with a guaranteed pathway to the California State University system. This bill was signed into law on September 29th, 2010, with the intent that it be implemented during the 2011-12 academic year. So we had our challenge cut out for us from the beginning. The bill provides that if a student completes 60 transferable units, that includes one of the common general education patterns, plus a minimum of 18 units in a major or area of emphasis, and the student earns a 2.0 GPA, that student can receive an associate degree designed for transfer. And there are provisions that colleges may not add other local graduation requirements. The Academic Senate met and, as an academic and professional matter, discussed what these degrees should be called, and so they are to be designated an Associate of Arts in a particular major for transfer and shown on transcripts as AA-T, or an Associate of Science in a major for transfer designated as AS/T. This bill provides significant benefits for community college students who wish to go to the CSU. The bill provides that they be guaranteed admission with junior standing to one of the California State University campuses. The CSU must accept all of the 60 units that are part of their associate degree towards completion of the baccalaureate. The CSU must guarantee that the student can complete the baccalaureate with another 60 units. And this applies to most majors, to standard 120-unit majors. There are some recognized high-unit majors that are not directly addressed by the bill, although the work that we're doing to implement the bill will also have an impact later on facilitating students' completion of those high-unit majors. But for the time being, we're focused on the standard 120-unit degree majors, unit degrees. The California State University also cannot require a student to repeat a course that is similar to a course already taken at the community college and included in their degree. All of those benefits are delineated in the statute. As we have worked with the CSU to implement this bill, we've gotten more specific in how some of this is going to play out for students. The students with the associate degree for transfer will clearly have the highest priority for admission to their local CSU campus. The local area is defined by every CSU, and in most cases, students who are not within that local area have to have a higher GPA. It's called meeting supplemental admission criteria to get into a university for which their college is not considered local. Historically, the CSU could also require students to take additional courses, but with the provisions of SB 1440, they have agreed that the supplemental criteria for most majors will only involve GPA. So at least a student won't face having to add courses that they were not anticipating or courses that are not part of their degree at the end of their community college time. Being in a CSU's local service area has become much more important as the CSU's budget has failed to keep pace with enrollment demand. And it is all but two, I think, of the CSUs are currently designated as impacted campuses. Well, I take that back. There are two at which every program is impacted. And then all but two of the others are impacted campuses, meaning that there's different criteria for students who are local versus those who are not local. So students who are applying to a CSU from outside the local area will be given a 0.2% advantage in their GPA to meet the higher admission criteria. So if the impaction GPA for non-local students is set at 3.64, then a student with an associate degree for transfer will be admitted with a 3.62. So that's a clear benefit of the bill. The CSU has also indicated that they will offer priority registration to students with the SB 1440 degree. And they have asked that community colleges also provide priority registration for these students. And we are currently discussing that, but there's a difficulty for us because when a student is transferring to the CSU, it's clear whether they have followed the 1440 degree path or not. At the point that they're enrolling at the community college, when they're taking their general education, they may indicate that they intend to get an associate degree for transfer, but we may not have the ability to verify that or to rely on that should their plans change along the road. So that's something that we're currently working on. There are some significant challenges, particularly when a CSU program is declared impacted. And impacted means that the number of fully eligible applicants exceeds the number of spaces available. So you often don't know until close to the time of acceptances which programs are impacted. But the CSU has projected that for 2011-12, all of the CSU campuses will have at least one impacted program, and at several of the institutions, at San Diego State, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, San Jose State, and Fullerton, all programs are impacted. So this means that the discipline faculty for each major can add supplemental admission criteria. Again, we had a discussion with the CSU about confining those supplemental criteria to GPA, because you cannot carry out either the letter or the intent of SB 1440 and require students to add courses to their program at the end of their program. That simply won't work. So so the focus is on GPA. And the CSU has agreed that if it's a situation where there are more students applying to a major with a GPA at a certain level, then they can accommodate, if they can only take a portion of those, then they will give the students with the associate degree for transfer a 1-point GPA bump. Your handout says 2 points. That's an error. What's on the slide is correct. A 1-point bump in those circumstances where they need a tiebreaker to determine where in the set of students with the same GPA to cut off to meet their targets. Clearly, the biggest challenge to the state of California is budget when it comes to being able to successfully implement this program or otherwise offer the higher education opportunity that the people of California need. And when all of us began looking at what might happen under a worst-case budget scenario, you may recall that the CSU system said that they would have to cut 10,000 slots if the worst-case budget were to become reality. They indicated that those slots would be cut in the spring, and they never stated that that would primarily affect community college transfer students. But the reality is that almost all spring admissions are our transfer students. So we could potentially find a huge barrier to our students' ability to transfer strictly because of the budget situation.
How they were applying it.
Thanks to Chancellor Scott and Chancellor Reed talking together about how to make sure that this bill is implemented to meet its intent. An implementation and oversight committee was established. It is co-chaired by our Executive Vice Chancellor for Programs, Eric Skinner, with his counterpart from the CSU system, Ephraim Smith. And you have a list of the community college representatives on that committee. This has been the venue for discussion and resolution of issues to successfully implement the bill. And this group has been meeting monthly and will continue to do so until things are smoothly off the ground. There are often curriculum issues that need to be addressed, and those are deferred to an intersegmental faculty work group that is co-chaired by Jane and her CSU counterpart. And I'll let Jane talk about what has been going on in that realm.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Michalowski. I'm happy to tell you about some wonderful progress that's made, and I also want to share with you some continuing challenges that we have in the implementation. When the bill was written, it did not require the two systems to work together. It did not require the faculty. It did not require the faculty to align the curriculum. The bill merely said that colleges will put degrees in place and CSU will accept them. That's pretty much all it said. But the faculty immediately thought, this is not going to make sense. We have to work together. And why don't we use this bill as an opportunity to make some really important system-wide change. And so the change that we called for was to pull the faculty together in each discipline from CSU and community colleges to coordinate the curriculum so that there is a pattern of lower division preparation that will be common, rather than what I sometimes referred to as Plan B. 112 colleges develop 112 different degrees for all the top 20 majors, which is absolute chaos. So what we're doing in our system is really coordinating the curriculum by bringing the faculty together, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how we've done that. I really feel that the faculty have gone above and beyond what the bill said. And done more that is beneficial for everyone. But ultimately, the success is going to, I think, rest on the side of CSU as far as how they implement the admissions. And you see at the end of that slide, it says, given admission priority. I would say that priority is still a topic we're working on with CSU. What exactly does that mean? I mean, the local priority is good, it's important, it's beneficial, but the actual language, I just want to read you one little section of what the bill said. It said, a student admitted under this article shall receive priority over all other community college transfer students, with the exception of students that have a transfer guarantee that was signed in advance. Now, I interpret priority over all other community college transfer students to mean that. And we're still in negotiations and discussions with CSU to really ensure that students, I mean, I can appreciate some campuses and some majors will have impaction, but, you know, one of the problems was that one CSU campus decided that the first 3 majors were not similar to any of theirs, and that to me is not the spirit of where we need to be going. So the way we've been able to make this happen is by using the course identification numbering system infrastructure. You might recall, and I think we may want to share an update with you on CID before too long to keep you up to date on the progress we've made there. But the course identification numbering system is putting a supra number on courses. We have local course numbers that are different across the state, but if you can identify that this is an English 1A class, this is a History 1B class, and across the state the courses are comparable, that's what the CID course identification numbering system is doing. And the way CID works is it pulls together the discipline faculty from the CSU and community colleges to work on the identification of courses. Now, as long as they were already meeting when the bill was signed in September, 3 weeks later, we were having a CID discipline, a set of discipline meetings with about 10 different disciplines, and we said to them, we would like to give you one other task to do today. We'd like you to develop what we call a transfer model curriculum, TMC for short. In other words, if students have to do 18 units for their associate degree, what 18 units would you like it to be, faculty? What do you think is appropriate curriculum at the community college that will feed in well to the CSU upper division program? So the faculty have developed transfer model curriculum, which are then vetted. Actually, I think I need to stay with that previous one. They get vetted across the state so that online faculty from CSU and community colleges can say, yes, that's good, or no, you should add this, you should change this, and it builds consensus so that the TMC really has some buy-in from all the faculty. Once they're finalized, then community colleges develop their local degrees that align with the transfer model curriculum, and the Chancellor's Office is expediting approval because all of these degrees are looking very similar to the rest of them. So what exactly is a TMC? It's a framework for the major component of the community college degree that's developed jointly by the faculty who teach in that major. One goal is to establish some statewide consistency in the major preparation to simplify transfer. And the TMCs are intended to identify common courses that also allow each college to develop degrees that work best for wherever the students may go. So here's what a TMC looks like. It has a common core of courses that we expect everybody to put into their degree. Because remember, degrees are developed at each college, 112 different degrees. But we said, you know, in the TMC, let's make sure that we have at least 6 units that are common. And then the local college can choose other courses to put into their degree to make up the 18 units, but they're from a selected list that the faculty have agreed to. So let's look at an example. I teach communication studies. This is the TMC that the faculty develop for communication. The core courses are 9 units instead of 6. Remember, 6 was the minimum. They decided to do 9. So every student has to take public speaking, which already is a requirement anyway. And then the local college can choose, would you rather have the students take argumentation or debate? Would you rather they take interpersonal communication or small group communication? These are classes that are offered pretty much at every community college in this major. So the college can choose any 9 units from that list. And then the college is going to select at least select 6 units from the list not used above or from this additional list. And then finally, they're going to choose 3 more units. And it adds up to a total of 18 units. But it's contained. It's clearly clarified what those courses will be rather than being sort of all over the map, which it could have been without the TMC. So here's the progress that we've made so far. If you look across the top, we've got step 1, step 2, and then the transfer model curriculum completed. Step 1 is convening the discipline groups. And for all those disciplines, we have convened a meeting of the faculty, and they have begun or finalized a transfer model curriculum. The second column is the review process, whereby faculty are looking at this TMC and saying, yes, we like it, no, we don't, here's how we would change it, etc. And then the final column is the ones that are finished and disseminated across the state. So far, the first 4 disciplines, Soc, Psych, Comm Studies, and Math, faculty across the state are developing degrees that align with those. And the rest of them, we will continue to add more and more. And in this way, we believe that every college can be compliant to at least have some degrees in place in the fall, and we will keep adding more and more and more next year. We've actually covered the top 20 majors, the most frequently frequent transfer majors have at least been started. So the titles of the degrees, the Academic Senate has passed a resolution a couple years ago indicating that when we identify our degrees, it would make a lot more sense if we all use the same titles. So as we develop these new degrees, the AS degrees will be used for the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, or math majors, or the CTE fields, and the AA will be used for everything else. One of the important pieces of the legislation was it said that CSU will determine whether or not the community college degrees are similar to the ones that they offer. And so what happened, remember I said there were four majors that we developed right off the bat, 4 TMC. Actually, the first 3 were immediately sent out to the CSU, and this question was given to the CSU campus. Would the students who finished this TMC prior to transfer be adequately prepared for upper division work in the major so that they could complete a major in 60 semester units to get all the way through the baccalaureate degree? And 20 of the CSU campuses have designated at least one of those first 3 as similar, and in some cases, 2 or 3 of the first 3 they have accepted. So we feel good about that progress. In other words, a student who's completed this degree knows that quite a few campuses will accept them. Again, except for the...
Jane, you meant first 4, right?
Well, unfortunately, we did 3 right off the bat, and the 4th one came about a month later.
Oh.
So really, the first 3 were sent out at once, simultaneously. The 4th one was sent out, and we actually haven't heard back from CSU the answer on that. I'm sorry I made that confusing there. There are 4 that are finalized, but only 3 that we've heard about from CSU. So, back to Linda.
Yeah, so that process will continue with each of the TMCs as they are approved by the faculty. In the meantime, once the TMC is approved, and then it comes to our office for review. Well, actually, our office has been collaborative and is pretty much watching the development of these from the beginning. But then we are able to approve it through our curriculum approval process, which is handled in academic affairs led by Vice Chancellor Barry Russell and his Dean Stephanie Lowe, who's really done the bulk of this work. And so thus far, all 4 of those TMCs have been approved as a model for an associate degree for transfer, and 15 degree submissions based on the TMC from individual colleges have been approved. Our Academic Affairs Division is currently reviewing 46 more degree proposals from colleges, and we are aware of at least 71 colleges that are in the process of developing degree proposals on their campuses. And we like to give recognition to the College of the Desert because they were the very first community college to submit and have approved associate degrees for transfer. And I believe they did all 3 of the original TMCs before anyone else did. So in terms of where we are and what the timeline is for continued implementation of this bill, right now we are beginning to focus more attention on developing advising materials for the colleges to use with incoming students and to let the broader public know about the availability of these degrees and what they entail. So we've just created a subgroup from the Implementation and Oversight Committee to work on that. In the fall term, there will be some degrees available to students who are enrolling. They will be able to take that degree path. And it's conceivable that some continuing students will have already completed many of the courses, at least the general education and perhaps much of the major preparation. So to the extent that they can use what's already on their transcript and add the courses that are necessary for the new associate degree for transfer, there could be students ready to enter the CSU in the spring term of 2012 with the benefits of this degree going with them. So while that's occurring, the discipline faculty will continue to develop more TMC templates. During the fall and spring of next year, there will be more TMCs, more course descriptors, and more degrees approved, so that by the following fall, many, if not all, of the most popular majors will be provided. We are also working on an intersegmental website that at this point is primarily designed for internal audiences in the 2 systems, but to be able to access all information, the most current information regarding SB 1440 implementation. And so what you see is just a prototype, but within the next few weeks, we would like this to go live. And it will have one section specifically for counselors where they can get information to guide them in working with students. And we wanted to mention that a new report just came out last month that is an analysis of transfer associate degrees in 4 states, Arizona, New Jersey, Ohio, and Washington. And what's most interesting is that virtually everything that's laid out in that report as the critical elements to a successful transfer degree is part of what we are doing right now in California. So there's a link if you are interested in accessing that report. And that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Walter S. Johnson Foundation. And additional resources for more information are available to you, and we will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Member Azumi.
I want to compliment the Vice Chancellor and also Jane Patton for the great work in implementing this such an important piece of legislation. And so, I mean, it's such a hopeful thing to see. Wanted to just ask, have there, been any major challenges or difficulties in the whole harmonization process? I know it puts you on the spot, but
Well, I've been joking. This is my last board meeting as president of the Academic Senate, and I have tenure, so I can answer that.
good.
I feel very good about the faculty-to-faculty dialogue, and I feel like we've developed a really good team and some good trust. There are bumps in the road, as you would expect. One of the latest bumps is about the American Institutions requirement that is in Title V for CSU graduates. And there is a lot of tension and debate and discussion about who should be requiring those courses. And our interpretation is that we're forbidden to add anything additionally because the law explicitly says we cannot add any additional local requirements, and plus the degrees have already been developed and they're full. They're 60 units as we were told to do. So that's a challenge. We feel really strongly about the issue of priority, and if at the end of the day students only get priority to their own campus, that's no improvement over the status quo, and we did not need to develop a statewide approach. And the faculty, we have sold our faculty on this whole statewide solution on the basis of the assumption that the bill said they will get priority across the state. And in other words, there are faculty locally who would prefer not to do the TMC and would prefer to do it their own way and not sort of be a part of the coordination effort. And we said, but it's going to help students. It's going to give them a lot more priority. And if that doesn't happen, this is really serious because we sold them, that's what we sold them on. So I feel like that's probably the most thorny issue that we're still wrestling with.
So if I can add a bit, yes, there have been challenges, but so far we've been working through them. We don't always get everything that we would have liked to have gotten in terms of the approach going forward, but we have spent a lot of time working between the two systems, as the faculty have among the two faculties, to work through each of the issues as they occur. Right now, as things stand, every student with a 1440 associate degree for transfer will have some advantage over students without that degree. We're still moving forward in that regard. Our biggest concern is to make sure that all of the CSUs participate in this process. And as Jane mentioned earlier, San Diego State has initially said that none of our transfer model curricula match their degrees. And the reason for that is because they feel that the additional units that they will require for American institutions and for major preparation, and they have a foreign language requirement for all students to graduate, that with those, that the way our degrees are designed, it will not allow them to provide a degree within an additional 60 units. So based on that, running into that problem, Chancellor Scott actually had another conversation with Chancellor Reed, and they talked about some possible ways to resolve that, because all of us remain committed that every college and university will participate. So I would say it's not always been easy, but we are moving forward, making progress with our CSU partners.
Thank you.
Member Malumed and Vice President Perez.
Yes, I'd like to thank you also for working hard on this. You're doing great work. When you have a college tell you that that major is not one that they're willing to accept your plan, does that make you go back and redo it a little bit?
That's an excellent question. All of the TMC will be reviewed on a regular basis, but remember that there is some flexibility in how a local college puts their degree together. So it's conceivable that if my college, Mission College, developed their degree picking these courses, then the CSU might say no, but had we chosen those courses, they might say yes, even though they deem the TMC as not comparable. So locally, we can probably, in some cases, tweak the courses that we select to put in the degree so that they'll be acceptable, particularly to a university where a lot of our students go in that major. But yes, we can revisit, and yes, we can make changes. But if it's just one or two campuses and it's working for the rest, we probably wouldn't want to.
Thank you.
It's encouraging to see the progress this has been made so far, so I just want to thank you all for the hard work that you've been doing. If you could help me clarify, is it possible that in the community college system itself, I'm trying to follow the student experience here. So if I'm a student in the community college, is it possible that each of the colleges could have different programs for obtaining that degree, or will that be common amongst the colleges, the campuses, the districts? I mean, how will that student experience be?
Well, 1440 did not require the alignment, didn't require us to do the TMC. That was our idea that came after it. So technically, 112 colleges could do 112 different degrees. We're trying to encourage the uniformity as much as possible with some local flexibility. So from a student standpoint, we believe, the faculty and the academic senate believe, that the greatest advantage is to the students who take a degree at a college where they've done a TMC-aligned degree. That there's a great deal more predictability and consistency, and if the student moves from one community college to another, which a lot of them do, if they have aligned degrees, there is much less chance of redundant coursework. So I'm not sure if I answered it. Maybe Lynda'd like to add.
Now, I think you did exactly answer it. We can't compel all colleges to adopt the same degree or a very similar degree, but we're doing everything possible to encourage that and to facilitate that. We have let the colleges know that if they are interested in getting these degrees approved most quickly, then following the TMC model is definitely the way to do that, because we can simply check off, yes, 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 it meets these course requirements, and it's done. If they choose to develop their own local version of a associate degree for transfer, then we have to start from scratch and look at what kind of articulation exists for each of those courses. So it's much more, it can facilitate rapid adoption of the degrees if colleges use the transfer model curricula. Jane has just sent an update to the faculty, which has been distributed to you, and there's additional information in there about some other efforts of the faculty to make this easier for students. And do you want to talk about the resolution that was passed on?
Well, a couple of resolutions that the Academic Senate passed. One was to support and encourage the use of the TMC. We can't compel colleges to do it, but that was one. And then the other one is that we're urging colleges to give pass-along credit if a student took a TMC-aligned course at another college and then comes to my college, that we should accept those credits toward the degree and not make them take some other course. And that's certainly the spirit of the legislation, to reduce unnecessary units if they've already taken a comparable course.
So just one other question. Is there a timeline that we're pushing towards, that by a certain time we want each of the campuses and community college to have a program in place?
So the law said that by fall, colleges need to be offering degrees, but it didn't stipulate how many. So the Chancellor's office, I think, has said you need to at least get 2 in place for fall, and it looks like people are going to be compliant, like colleges will be compliant. Some colleges will have 4, 5, 6 by fall. And because we've got so many in the pipeline that are already moving along, you know, we think the top 20 for sure next year. I mean, that's our guess, and quite likely more.
Thank you.
as more people become aware of these degrees, and we will begin publicizing it more to, external constituencies very soon, then students will be demanding them. So we expect to continue this on a fast track until we've got all of the majors covered.
Member McDougall, Member Haley, and Member Barrera were next.
I'd like to
Barreras.
join the other board members in expressing appreciation for the work that you've done. It seems both extensive and of a very high quality, and that's greatly appreciated. I think all of us recognize the complexities, the sense of territoriality that exists in these areas, and making progress such as you have is impressive. I think the critical element for us as a board and for our system is the consideration of access by our students at the transfer level. And that's why I would like to dig maybe just a little bit deeper, Jane, in your concern about priority admissions. Because with all the work that's being done, if there are not slots available, then we have a problem. And there are a lot of ways of determining priorities. Just looking, for example, for the first-year student, the freshman student, there are options available. If not the CSU, 112 community colleges. For the transfer student, there are public universities, the options are very limited. Granted, there are options in the private sector, but extremely expensive. So I'm very concerned about this issue of priority, and I'm not sure how it is addressed. I know, for example, there used to be a assessment or a guideline of lower to upper division.
Right.
Of 40% of the students
Yep.
would be freshmen and sophomores, 60% would be upperclassmen to ensure priority space was available for the community colleges. And question number one is, are we adhering to some type of ratio that enlarges the upper division ratio to ensure an opportunity is going to be available for our students? I'd just like to know a little bit more about that, because that seems to be the Achilles heel with all the good work taking place. If the spaces are not sufficiently protected, we don't get the system gain and benefit that all of us would expect and want from this effort.
If I can just say two quick things, and then I'll let Jane respond. One is that 40-60 ratio is in law. So the CSU, continues to honor that in its prior and will
Well, that's
continue to
helpful.
honor that in its approach to enrollment management. Beyond that, from the beginning, the CSU has said, if necessary, they will decrease the number of freshman enrollments
Terrific.
in order to make sure that all community college transfers who have these degrees will have a slot. But the tricky part is that entitlement is only to somewhere in the CSU system. So that is not necessarily a guarantee that every transfer student who's well qualified will be able to get into the CSU of their choice. And I'll let Jane elaborate on that.
Actually, you said almost exactly what I was going to say. UC, of course, did make a concession a couple years ago where they determined that they would increase their slots for transfer students, and that did help our students get more positions. I don't know the numbers, but they did increase that. It seems to me that obviously the biggest problem is how big their piece of the pie is, and obviously that's shrinking, and they just don't have enough slots, just like we don't. So that's the number one problem, is capacity. But in addition, I don't know if at some point it would be appropriate to look at the 60-40. I don't know how much that conversation has been had or how much it should, but I think that's a valid question to raise.
If I might just add, I think the 40-60 is under good conditions a appropriate ratio. But I was very encouraged by the statement that the CSU has stated that if it becomes a problem, they will move in the direction of expanding transfer and not freshman students. So I think that's encouraging. I know this is a tough time for the system, but they appear to be very sensitive to the issue and responding to the needs of our system. So I'm encouraged.
Member Haley, Member Barreras, and then Member Ramos.
I just want to echo the congratulations to you and to actually the faculty of the community college, because they have not always been as supportive of what you all have accomplished in just what seems like a few years to me. I'm just so proud to see this coming to such a point where it's really going to take place. It's going to really happen, you guys. You've just done it. So thank you for all of us, but for those transfer students in our community colleges especially.
My question is, of course, I echo everybody's congratulations on the hard work as well. But one of my questions is that there's a subcommittee that's been in place to develop information and tools for the counselors and transfer centers to help the students in terms of transfers. What type of tools are they going to be using, if you can name some? And then is degree audit one of them that would be able to use to see where the students are at?
We are just in the process of putting that subgroup together. We have a transfer center director who's on the implementation and oversight committee. We'll make sure we have an admissions officer on that work group as well. I don't have an answer for what the tools are going to be, because that'll be the first task of that group, is to determine what is needed. But I think that, what are the messages to advise students about these degrees will be the very first focus. There's a lot of discussion going on otherwise in the system about developing a statewide degree audit system. We're talking about that in the context of the Student Success Task Force, and there's a lot of interest in doing that. So I've been, talking with Vice Chancellor Perry and others about the possibility of doing that, and certainly that would incorporate these degrees.
I would just add that we have already begun conversations with counselors about what their needs are and to generate ideas from them. We met with counseling groups several times in the last month. We've had 3 or 4 occasions, and one of the things we've been telling counselors up until this point is it's premature to be counseling students today until we have the system in place, and until we get all the guarantees and everything in writing from CSU about what they'll get at the end of the day. We really can't be giving too much information out. I mean, if you think about it, we started in October and had to develop degrees that were on the books for the next September. So in less than a year, next year, that's going to be the highest priority, is getting information out to students in the fall.
Member Ramos.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, Linda. Hi, Jane. I'm so happy to be back at this table.
Welcome back.
I love asking you guys questions, and I love learning from you. I have to admit, I may have missed something in the translation, but I'm particularly interested in this bolded comment at the bottom of your challenges page that talks about budget cuts potentially reducing or eliminating the transfers that at least would come up in the first round. And maybe this relates to the priority question, but I'm a little lost. What does that mean? I mean, is there going to be a formulaic sort of reduction based on certain drops in budgeting, or is this a discretionary item that each individual partner institution would be able to just employ? That's my first question, and then let me ask a follow-up question once you're done with that response.
All right. Typically, during the last round of budget cuts for higher education, the CSU Chancellor's Office issued guidance to the campuses about their enrollment targets. And in fact, I believe this was 2 years ago. If you look at our annual transfer figures to CSU, they plummeted by more than 10,000 enrollments because CSU got late news that their budget was being cut. And so the determination was that all of those cuts would occur in the spring term. and almost all of their new enrollments in the spring term are community college transfer students. So they did not, at least never made a public decision that they were going to reduce transfers, but the impact due to the way the budget cuts were implemented fell directly on community college transfer students. I believe that that could occur again. And that really, we've not discussed that, I don't think at all, in the Implementation and Oversight Committee, but it's a bit of a serious threat that's hanging, and it will be blamed on the budget, not on policy for transfer, but nonetheless, the impact on the ability of our students to transfer with or without the degree could be seriously impaired.
Yeah, that's a concern at the heart of my question. Do you have a thought on that, Jane, that you want to?
No, it's just very depressing.
Yeah, okay, so that's a loophole that we've got.
I think the Chancellor would like to comment.
Okay, please.
If you recall, Governor Brown, in his first budget, took $500 million away from CSU and $500 million away from University of California. That did not lead CSU to say that they would cut transfers. However, if it becomes an all cuts budget, then it's estimated that maybe as much as $1 billion will be taken away from CSU and $1 billion away from UC. At that point, it is possible CSU has the discretion, the authority to say, we can't take any more students. They cut, and they did that, as was pointed out by Vice Chancellor Michalowski. They did that 2 years ago because that was when they experienced, like we experienced an 8% cut, they experienced a cut of that same magnitude. So we don't have a lot of control over that. Now, I will add one little note here. We expect CSU to live up to what 1440 spells out. Fortunately, Chancellor Reed expects CSU to do that as well. There are occasions when perhaps we have some roadblocks, as was mentioned, when an individual campus, maybe the university faculty there, makes what I might call an arbitrary decision. Maybe that's a pejorative word, so I'll back off, but anyway, a decision. I will have to say that Senator Padilla has made it rather clear what he wants out of 1440. And if there is a failure on the part of either one of us to follow through, there will be follow-up legislation. That's not a threat, that's a statement. But there's no question that the legislature clearly has in mind what I might call a seamless transfer. And they do for two good reasons. One is it saves the students time and money, but it saves the state a great deal of money as well. Because if we're able to reduce the number of units that a community college transfer gets a CSU degree, we open up space for more students. So we are working at this in a very collegial way. And I think I'll say this before she leaves. I have been privileged in my time to work with Jane Patton and the great work that she's done, and she's done a terrific job on this particular issue. And I am not I sat in for a few minutes, or maybe a little more than a few minutes, and listened to the kind of discussion that goes on between these two faculties as they work this out. And it's serious, it's well done, and they are the experts. There's no question about it. But we can't permit maybe a, shall I say, idiosyncratic decision made at one place to hold up what's good for the state and what's good for students. So we'll keep working on this, and Always, we'll do the very best we can. But what I'm saying about those kind of decisions that CSU makes, it's easy for us to think they're doing it, sort of aiming it at the community colleges, but the reality is that when you have $1 billion cut slapped on you, you really do have to make some kind of changes there. And just like all of our colleges are cutting their enrollments we may be cutting our enrollments by 10% this year. If an all-cuts budget comes around, that's what we will do. We'll end up, right now, we know we're going to get a 5% cut, and the state, fortunately, is saying you reduce your workload by 5%. But some colleges, which are over cap already, they may reduce their courses by 7 or 8%.
Right.
And, that's going to happen. And so, in one way, a lot of times institutions get blamed, but the real blame is on the state of California.
That's right.
And its failure to, frankly, treasure higher education sufficiently to give it the kind of money to meet the needs of the state of California. I have been kind of blunt sometimes when I say to students, and they'll say, well, I went in and X legislator said, oh, I love the community colleges. And I say, ask him or her what kind of money they're willing to put on the line. I don't think we can spend rhetoric very easily. And so if you really want to get back to the origin of all of this, the origin is the lack of commitment on the state of California to fund higher education at the level that it needs to be for its students and for its future. But we're having some tough decisions to be made here, and the nitty-gritty work that's being done by those faculty is very, very impressive. And yes, we'll probably run into a few bumps in the road, but I don't think we would merely, if we can't solve them, merely fold our hands and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it.
So I have just a quick
Sure,
follow-up,
please.
sorry, because I think it is related to what we started here on this trend in the conversation. So I just want to ask if we have any tracking or oversight capacity to assess over time how we're doing on economies, how we're doing on implementation efficacy. I mean, I understand the import of us seeing this strategy as a mechanism to, over time, reduce costs to the state to get more bang for the buck, and that is something we all support. But frankly, what I'm sensing and hearing from just the incredible amount of time and effort that's being required to get the machinery aligned is costing us a lot too. And I just want to know, is there some mechanism that we have to ascertain a cost benefit and a kind of an effect impact that we're having by shifting in this seemingly appropriate way, but one that's obviously fraught with complications?
I think we will definitely be able to measure some of the impact and efficiencies. We'll be able to compare the number of transfers to CSU, the degrees that students are taking with them, the degrees at the point that they graduate from the units at the point that they graduate from CSU. And so I do think that we'll need to make a point of doing that kind of analysis. In addition, we'll establish a marker for the students who are pursuing these degrees. They'll have to be certified as 1440 degrees when students receive them. And the CSU is very interested in working with us to identify these students as early as possible so that they can measure how many students are coming down their pipeline and can prepare for them. So yes, we will pay careful attention to documenting how all of this plays out.
Great, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing how that does play out.
Yeah.
Thanks for your patience.
Mm-hmm. Any other board member Baca?
First of all, I want to thank both of you for the work that you've done on this, and Jane, not only on this work, but on all the work that you've done. You've been an excellent academic senate president, and it's always reassuring to be able to contact you and be able to get information on almost any issue that is of an academic nature. I don't want to belabor the points that have been made, both the Chancellor and Member Ramos, but over the long stretch, again, I think this is one of those efforts that ultimately will maybe shift a little bit of the state responsibilities from lower division CSU to the community college, and ultimately save the system, the state, some funding, because we do get funded at a lower rate. So those things will certainly come into play. You know, as we discuss this, I sometimes, and I spend a good amount of time with this, I get a little confused because it seems like a yin-yang. We'll get one number and then the other number, it's all forever shifting. But there is some absolutely great intent on this. I'm glad that we've done this and we've moved along to this point. During these times of fiscal strict constraints, though, I certainly would think that we have to be very cognizant about what drives certain decisions. Is it really about finance, or is it simply a matter of control and discretion on the part of some people? And I think, you know, it's not an easy thing to put your finger on, but it's certainly something that we have to be mindful of in terms of the decisions that are made, which is driving it, because if we know what it is, then maybe we can better challenge those things that we find are affecting in a negative way. Thank you both.
Member Izumi?
Just a real quick question, and I echo Member Baca's compliments to you, Jane, about the great job that you have done leading the Academic Senate. And I just must say that during my time on the board, the leadership of the Academic Senate has always been one of the pillars that I think the board could always count on. So thank you for that. I wanted to just ask, I noticed that one of the slides had the College of the Desert as the first to have a transfer degree. I just wondered, how did they get to that point so fast, and what have they been doing there?
You know, I didn't talk to them, so I can't tell you exactly what they did. But evidently, when they got the first 3 TMC, they looked at them and said, "Looks good." And they filled out the paperwork and sent it off. And, curriculum processes take time locally, and it requires convening the group and having different folks look at things. And for whatever reason, they were ready to hit the ground running and got them sent off really quickly. So good for them.
The Community College League was very collaborative in preparing for implementation of 1440, and they developed a model board policy that they provided to all the community college districts that was kind of a template for something the board could adopt to expedite the approval of these degrees. And so I think that's probably helped some colleges to move quickly.
Member Davis-Lyman?
Yeah. And I believe, Jane, you're still going to be working with this group in the next year, is that?
Yeah, I'll be working on the faculty end of it, the curriculum part. I'm going to stay on as, yeah.
Well, that's great, because I think the issues and concerns that we have will stay on the front burner. Do you play poker? No, because Jane has this incredible ability of knowing when to hold them, and when to fold them. And I know you won't fold because of your caring, collaborative, and also your very disciplined way of representing not only faculty, but all of our students and all of us in this statewide arena. You never waver on what the importance is of our mission. And you are the consummate professional, and I will miss you personally as well. But I'm glad you're going to stay there and hold on to those cards.
Okay. Jane, does that mean someone else will be briefing us on the implementation?
Well, I was
as we
going
move
to do
along?
it at the end of the meeting, but I'm happy to announce that Michelle Pilati was elected president of the Academic Senate, and Michelle's very capable, and you've seen her for the last 2 years here. And the vice president will be Beth Smith, who is a co-chair of the SAC committee, the System Advisory Committee on Curriculum, and the two of them, I think, are going to be a wonderful team, and I think you'll be delighted to have them continue. So you will still be getting regular updates from the Academic Senate.
Great. Well, thank you for all of your work, and we wish you the best. Okay.